Hello Seekers, thank you for joining me once again today as we go to episode 2 of our playthrough of the One Ring, Overhill and Underhill in the Elven Lord solo mode. So just before we get into the adventure and set the scene for that, there's a few notes I want to talk about from last time on the character creation, and some of these are pretty cool things that I actually wanted to show on camera. So I want to roll for our wondrous item, and this is something that could actually be have a big influence on how our adventure goes, because this is a powerful item, but it is a random roll. So if we roll something very useful, it could change the game a lot, and if we roll something not very useful, then it won't have much effect. So it's kind of exciting and nerve-wracking at the same time. So a wondrous item has 2 blessings on it, and it's basically an item that is not a weapon and not armor. So it's going to be something like a cloak or a belt or a ring, something of that nature. So the first thing we want to do is we want to roll a d4 to see which table, or sorry, a d6 to see which table it's going to be on. And we've got the personality, movement, perception, survival, custom, and vocation tables. So let's roll a d6 for that and see which table we're going to get. And that's a 2, so we're going to be on the movement table. And then we're going to roll d6 again to see what kind of blessing we're going to get. And that is a 5, so we're going to get a blessing to stealth, and that's really good. Our stealth skill is already very good, but there's nothing wrong with making it even better. And it's just going to allow us to lean in more to that strength of our character. So this could be a ring, a cloak, or shoes. And what that's going to do is it's going to give us an extra success die when rolling for stealth because we have that item equipped. But because this is a wondrous item, it has 2 qualities, so we have to roll for another quality here. So that is a 4, which is going to be on the survival table, and then we're going to roll again, and that's a 3, which is going to be for healing. And this is an unusual item, as potions and salves quickly lose their virtue. So I guess this is an item that can continuously be used for healing. So so we have a stealth healing item. Maybe we can call it shoes. Maybe the shoes are so comfortable that they give an incredible amount of comfort to the wearer, which gives them a feeling of healing, and then as well they mask their movements and make them harder to detect. So all right, we'll put that. We have these stealth healing boots. Okay, so now when we use whenever we have a stealth check or a healing check, we're going to get a 1 extra success die thanks to that wondrous boots that we have. So that's one thing that I needed to do from the character creation last time, and then we needed to get a second cultural virtue. So I wanted to take some time to think about that, and I decided to go for the deadly archery. And I couldn't use a great bow with that, so I went ahead and moved down to just a standard bow. And then also, in addition to that, I took a point out of insight and put that over to scan, because scan is used for the deadly archery skill there. So we got that out of there. And then the shadow path, I wrote down the shadow paths. Those are connected to your calling. So we have the scholar and treasure hunter calling. So the shadow of scholar is the lure of secrets, and then the shadow of hunter is the dragon sickness. And that's kind of like the shadow personality of the calling of the characters, maybe like the Jungian shadow or something there. And it is an interesting mechanic. but in this particular playthrough, it's probably not going to come out very much because it's kind of more of an attrition-based thing, as far as I know, or it might rely on getting a lot of really unlucky rolls. So I don't think we're going to see that in this adventure, just because it's not really long, and hopefully we don't get a lot of unlucky rolls. So that's the shadow path there, and then for Strider, because we are a Strider, the Strider has a special ability where whenever they activate a hope point, usually when you activate a hope point, you get 1 extra success die, 1 extra d6 for your skill check. But when you're a Strider and you activate a hope point, you are considered inspired, and so you get 2 extra dice for that. So I wrote that down. And then our patron for this adventure is actually the mother of Aragorn, and that's Gilrain or Gilrain. I don't know exactly how to say her name. I'm gonna say Gilrain, just like that. But so she is our patron, and she's who is giving our mission to us. And then I also wrote down the eye awareness. Our eye awareness level is 3, and we start with a 3 because we're like a high elf since we're a noble elf. So we start with a higher base awareness rating than if we were a hobbit or a human. And basically what that means is it's how interested the Eye of Sauron is in our activities. And just due to the fact that we are like a noble elf, we already have some points in that. And this is actually a really cool mechanic that I think is one of the best and most interesting mechanics in the One Ring. And this mechanic is not in the Overhill adventure. It's not in that rulebook because it's such an abbreviated rulebook. So you can only find it in the core rulebook. And even in the core rulebook, it's considered to be an optional rule, but I think it shouldn't be optional. I think it's actually one of the best rules in the game. And on our Rafamir's quick sheets, we have here a breakdown of the Eye of Mordor, and it's a really cool system that builds tension and danger as the company does more and more successful things. And it's really cool, actually, the way that it works. But this is something that we also probably are not going to see again unless we get a bunch of really bad rolls or something like that. So it kind of goes on more of a longer term journey, like longer attrition, and this particular journey for the starter set is not that long. All right, so I think that takes care of everything there. And then going back to our patron, Gilrain. So the reason that we even started, the reason that you would start this quest in the Overhill adventure is because you actually get a letter from Gilrain. And I'll just kind of hold that up there if anybody wants to pause and read it, but I'm just going to paraphrase it. Basically, there's a hunter named Rupert from Bree, and he was up hunting in the North Downs, and he came across a very troubling sight, some sort of like a dark ritual site, and he could really sense the evil in this place, that there's some kind of evil presence building there. And so he went and told Gilrain about that, and then because Gilrain is kind of the she's kind of a benefactor, an overseer for the region, and of course her son Aragorn is probably quite busy. I believe he is the chief of the Rangers at this time. I believe he is at this time already. I'm not quite sure on that, but so Gilrain was basically looking for help, and in her backstory, that there is some backstory about her in the core rulebook, and in her backstory she does have a close relationship with the elves. So I think it makes sense that an elf such as Fimberthiel might lend her aid. So that's why we are coming here now, and we are here in Bree, and we've just arrived in the Prancing Pony Inn, the inn that's famous from many of the famous stories from the Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit. And so we are now here in the inn, and we're going to encounter Rupert. We're going to encounter Rupert the Hunter. The evening has been pleasant, and you and your companions have enjoyed much of the pony's fine beer, but you didn't come to the inn merely for cheer. Lady Gilrain, your patron and wise counselor, arranged a meeting with a fellow named Rupert Rushlight, a hunter who has a tale of great interest to tell. When an old man with a limp and a bandaged eye approaches your table, you politely invite him to sit. Greetings, I am Rupert Rushlight, he says, with a weathered voice. We share a friend in Lady Gilrain. He glances around the room cautiously before lowering his voice to tell his tale. 3 weeks ago, while hunting in the eastern foothills of the North Downs, I was caught in a sudden storm. Seeking refuge from the biting wind, I stumbled upon a ring of ancient stones atop a hill. Though not a place I'd usually choose for rest, I hoped to find a cave or some kind of shelter there. On the bare summit, I noticed several tracks encircling a shallow pit at the center of the ring of stones. As I moved closer to inspect it, a cloud veiled the moon, enveloping everything in deep darkness. I barely remember what happened next. The air turned deathly cold, colder than any winter's night, as I recall watching my breath freezing before me, and I felt it, an ancient presence, powerful and malevolent, searching for me. When a terrifying growl echoed across the hills around me, I knew I had been discovered. Rupert pauses, his hand trembling as he takes a sip from his tankard. I ran, fleeing down the crown hill as fast as I could, nearly all the way to Bree. I told the rangers, and word reached Lady Gilrain. She asked me to tell my story, and so I did, but I beg you, don't ask me to return to those cursed stones. With these final words, Rupert hands you an envelope. The seal upon it unmistakably belongs to Gilrain. Inside is a letter written in the lady's graceful yet strong script. And though Rupert's tale sounds strange, you know well that the world is full of such dark mysteries, especially far from Bree's warmth. If Lady Gilrain thinks it's worth investigating, it's not to be ignored. All right, so there's our story there from Rupert, and it says that we have a couple different ways that we can go about getting some more information about what's going on. Obviously, we would like to know as much information as we can about where this happened. So over here in Bree, where we are, if you go just to the north, we have the North Downs. So we know it's going to be somewhere in this area, but we'd like to get more information. And Fimberthrill being something of a lore master and being very well studied, there's a good chance that we could lean on her knowledge, and that she would have knowledge already about this area, and she may know about these standing stones or this circle of stones already. So in order to do that, we're going to have to make a lore check, and with our lore, we are favored, so that means that we're going to get to have two of the feat dice, which is the D12 dice, and then we're also going to get 3 of the success dice, which is the D6 dice. So let's grab our dice here. We're going to get 3 success dice and then 2 of the feat dice. And if we can beat the target number of, or if we can meet or exceed the target number of 13, then we will succeed in our lore roll. So we're going to take out the lowest of the feat dice, which is a 5. And then we add the rest here. So we've got 6, 7, and then we've got 15 with the 8 there. So we do pass that, and we will get to unlock some lore information here. So it says that with a successful lore roll, we can identify the hill as being located not far from a small hillfolk settlement known as Kron. I don't know if that's Cran or Kron, but anyway, the inhabitants are known to be reclusive but not hostile. All right, so we basically know the rough area of it. It says that if we get a great or extraordinary success, then we would also get some more information here about the Dark Hills of Rudar, but we did not get a great or extraordinary success, so we will not get that information. And then it says here that, and actually I'm not sure if we're supposed to read this part here or not, but yeah, it talks about some more information about the some of the baddies that might be in the area. I think our character doesn't know this information, so we're not going to read that. And then, so yeah, we know our location, and Being that it's the evening now, we'll probably spend the night and then head out in the morning to start our journey into the North Downs. So let's get set for our journey. And prompted by the words of Rupert and the request of Lady Gilraine, the heroes set out to reach the hill described by the hunter. The days are warm and the night is clear. And we're going to follow the rules on the journeys booklet or follow the rules for journeys presented in the rules booklet. And we're going to have to choose a role, which, because we are a strider, so we play all roles, we don't need to choose a role. And then we're going to start by setting our journey path. So over here, I've got another of our quick guides here that will help us with carrying out our journey. And then I have our journey sheet right here, which I've already filled out some information on there. And we are currently in the season of autumn. We're in September, if that's what they call the month of September in Middle Earth. And then we're journeying from Bree, and we're heading to the North Downs. And for our company here, of course, we just have Fimberthiel, and our journey role is Strider. And this is where we'll record our fatigue. And fatigue is a major part of journeys, and it is an ongoing struggle to manage your fatigue. So, okay, and then on our map here, unfortunately, there is no hex map, large hex map poster given with the game. You do have a hex map in the back of the book, which I believe this hex map would be more of a GM-facing hex map, but it would be really nice if they would include a player-facing version of this hex map so that players can see the kind of a rough idea of the distances. And this map in general I just find to be a lot more useful for actually planning the journeys, but having it in the back of the book is kind of impractical because you're going to be flipping through the book. So that is one kind of minor complaint I have about the game, is that I really wish that they would include the hex map maybe on the flip side of this, whether that's a player-facing map or a GM-facing map. But anyway, I do have this tool that we can use here to kind of overlay hexes on this map. And we actually have in here the kind of showing you the journey where we need to go. So we're going to overlay this hex grid onto our map here. And I think Bree is going to be where the green is. Yeah, right there. So I have actually pulled the distances back a little bit more, since these hex grids are larger than the one that comes with the game. And that should work right there. And then I've also drawn an orange border around this area, which is to represent the fact that those lands are a little bit more wild and dangerous than the standard lands around here. So you've got basically 3 different kinds of lands, and you also have certain zones that are like extra perilous zones that are kind of marked out. They're usually a few hexes together, but I don't think we're going to be entering any of those perilous zones. So, all right, let's begin our journey. So, looking at our journey sheet here, and it's looking like this would be probably maybe a 5 or 4 day journey. So that's just a guess, because there's always going to be complications and things happening that can extend or possibly shorten the journey. So we're going to say roughly that this is going to be a 5 day journey. And I think we're going to have to do a marching test now, which is going to be a test for the travel skill, which we've got, I think we've got 2 points in that. Yeah, so we have 2 points in travels, not favored. So we're going to have 2 success die and 1 feat die. And we have rolled a 13, and I think we needed a 14. Yeah, so we have rolled under, so we failed our marching test, and that is probably going to result in a it's probably going to result in a roll on kind of like a bad events table. So if it fails, then there's going to be an event 2 hexes away. So if we had succeeded, we could have gone up to 3 hexes, possibly even up to 4 if we had rolled a special success, a tongue war. But now, because we failed, it's going to be 2 hexes away. But we are now in autumn, so it's actually going to be 1 hex away. So we will have an event just 1 hex down the track here. So I'm going to use blue marker for an event. So we're going to head over to this side. There's going to be an event there, and I'll mark our path. Now I would have gone up to here, but that, as you can see, that is behind the orange zone. So there are some other negatives associated with that, so we don't want to have to deal with that. All right, so we move on into this hex, and now we need to roll on the journey event table, and this roll is favored if the event takes place in the borderlands. So that's why we stayed in this area, because it's borderlands. The wildlands would be in this orange area, and then there's also a red area, which would be a dark land. So we're going to be doing a favored roll, which means we're going to get 2 feat dice and see what we get on the journey table. And I believe that I've got there's actually a different journey event table for the Strider mode. Okay, so this is going to be a favored roll because we're in the borderlands. So let's roll that and see what we get. And we've got either a 7 or a 3. So we're going to want to take the 7 because usually the higher numbers are better. So a 7 is going to be 6 to 9, which is a shortcut, and we can reduce the length of the journey by 1 day, but we do add 1 fatigue. But we need to look at the shortcut table first, and here we are for shortcut. So we're going to roll a d6 on there. That is a 4. And animal guide, hunting to follow at a distance. All right, so we need to make a successful hunting check here, and I believe our hunting skill is not good. Yeah, we don't actually have any hunting skills, so all we're going to get is 1. All we're going to get is 1 feat die, but I think we're going to use 1 point of hope here, and that's going to allow us to add 2 success die because we are inspired being a strider. So we'll add 2 success die to that and roll it. And oh, well, we got 2 1s, but we got the Gandalf rune. So the Gandalf rune is an automatic success. And I believe it also could be considered a great success as well. So in that case, we do pass the hunting check. And we're going to reduce the length of our journey by 1 day. So I think what we'll go ahead and do is we'll just go ahead and automatically move up 1 hex here, and that will kind of simulate that we kind of got a shortcut right there. So we're now up in this hex just south of the town of Fornost, and I believe Fornost is actually mostly a ruin. I don't know if there's any normal humans living there. So all right, so now we have completed that event, and then we're going to need to make another marching test to move on, but we also do take 1 point of fatigue. So let's mark down 1 travel fatigue, and we would have got more fatigue than that if we had failed, or if we had rolled a worse roll. So all right, and now we're still in the borderlands, so we don't need to worry about having any kind of penalties for being in the wildlands. So we will get to roll a favored roll and then 2 dice for travel. So we're checking our travel, and it looks like, okay, we're going to take the 10, and we did get a tongue mar, so that's 16, 17, 18. So very good roll there, and I believe that's going to allow us to move 3 hexes. Let me verify that. Look at our journeys here. And say normally we would move Oh yeah, so we would normally move 3 hexes, but we got 1 tongue war, so that's going to be 4 hexes. So that would put us, our destination is here, so we could go 1, 2, 3. So basically we can go right to our destination up here in the North Downs, and that's going to put us right where we've been wanting to go, which is to the Crown Hill. So we have arrived at the Crown Hill, and we didn't even have to do another event. And generally speaking, the fewer events that you can do when you're traveling, the better, because the events kind of add up, and you get more fatigue. And then one thing about the travel fatigue for the Elven Lord, all their travel fatigue is reduced by half. So if an Elven Lord gets 2 travel fatigue, it would be reduced to 1. And in this case, we would only be taking 1 travel fatigue. And when it's a 1, you just round up. So if it's a 1, even though you still have a reduction, you have to go up to 1. So we still take 1 travel fatigue for that event. But now the first leg of our journey has completed, and when we set up the next leg, then we would go ahead and kind of reset this a little bit. So yeah, we had a hunting. We had a hunting event, and the result was a success. So we'll go ahead and put that down for the first event that we had. And I think that we also need to calculate our fatigue. So at the end of the journey, if you have a mount, you can reduce fatigue by the mount's vigor rating. Okay, we don't have a mount. And we can reduce fatigue by 1 with a successful travel roll, plus 1 for each tongue war, and any remainder is transferred to the character. Okay, so now we've completed our journey. So now we can do a travel check, and we're not going to be favored for this. I don't think. No. And if we successfully pass this, we can remove that fatigue actually. And oh, we've got an Eye of Sauron. So that I believe is going to indicate a 0. So we definitely don't pass our travel roll there. And I think we actually get a shadow point for that. I'm not, well, because this is just a fatigue check, so maybe not. But if that had been a normal travel roll for our traveling, we would actually get a shadow point or have a shadow check. So I think for this particular, because this is just a fatigue check at the end of the journey, so I don't think we're going to have to apply it there. But anyway, we're not going to get to erase a fatigue. And we're going to enter into our next part of our adventure here. So let's take a look at what we got going on in the Crowned Hill. It says that you have been following a tortuous path across the North Downs for some time when you finally see it. The hill that Rupert spoke of rises within a small wood, its summit mostly barren. The ascent is easy and you quickly reach the top. Sparse grass patches cling to the rocky soil where 5 grim shadowy stones jut upward like the fingers of a skeletal hand. 4 of these stones grouped together, their foreboding shapes mirrored by a solitary, thicker yet shorter stone standing on the opposite side. A terrible reek hangs in the air, emanating from a shallow pit dug in the middle of the ring of stones. As you look inside the pit, you discover the source of the vile stench. A large decaying carcass swarmed by flies. So we have arrived up here on the Crowned Hill, and when we come back next time, we will investigate the hill and see if we can find the source of this malevolent force that's hanging around in the air here, and see if we can find evidence of what is going on. So thank you once again for joining me, and we'll see you next time.